The twin suns of Arkan Prime burned across the alien sky, painting the city of white stone and silver towers in gold light. The great plaza was filled with thousands of alien citizens, their green skin shimmering under the sun. All of them waited in silence for the trial to begin. At the center of the arena stood a young alien girl named Liara. Her wrists were bound with glowing metal cuffs. Her eyes were wide and full of fear. She looked so small and fragile among the tall stone pillars and the heavy figures of the alien guards. Around her, the crowd whispered in strange voices, their words full of anger and judgment. High above her on a raised platform, the alien High Council sat in their silver chairs. The oldest among them, High Priest Voran, lifted his staff. The crowd fell completely silent. "Liara of the Emerald Clan," he said in a cold, deep voice. "You are accused of betraying the sacred code of the Empire. You gave protection to an off-worlder, a human, against our law for this crime. The punishment is the ritual of stones." The crowd began to murmur again. Some shouted for mercy, others demanded her death. Liara's heart beat fast. She wanted to speak, to tell them she was innocent, that she only helped a wounded traveler. But she knew it was useless. No one would listen to a low-born girl. In the front row, among the aliens, stood a single human. His name was Ethan Cross, a soldier from the Terran fleet. He had come to Arkan Prime on a peace mission. But now he watched with disbelief as the aliens prepared to execute someone who had saved one of his own. The guards brought a basket of black stones, each one glowing faintly with blue energy. They formed a circle around Liara. Her knees trembled, but she did not fall. High Priest Voran raised his hand. "The law is clear," he said. "Let the stones judge her." Ethan's heart pounded. He could not stay silent. He stepped forward, his boots echoing on the marble floor. "Stop," he shouted. His voice cut through the crowd like thunder. Thousands of alien eyes turned toward him. "She's innocent," Ethan said. "She saved a human, yes, but she did it out of kindness, not rebellion. You call that a crime?" The council members glared at him. One of them hissed, "You dare to interrupt our law, outsider?" Ethan took a deep breath. His voice shook but did not break. "If she must be punished," he said, "then punish me instead." The plaza fell silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. Voran leaned forward, his golden eyes narrow. "You would take her punishment, human?" "Yes," Ethan said. "If it will save her life." "I'll take it," gasps filled the air. The aliens had never seen such madness. To take another's punishment was forbidden. Yet deep in the ancient scrolls, there was a forgotten clause. If a being endured the sentence of another and survived, their souls became bound by law. The high priest smiled slowly. It was the smile of a predator who had found a new game. "Very well, human," he said. "We shall see how long your courage lasts." The guards untied Liara and pushed Ethan to the center of the arena. The glowing cuffs were placed on his wrists. They burned like fire, but he did not move. Liara tried to speak, her voice trembling. "Please don't do this, they'll kill you." Ethan looked at her and smiled softly. "Then at least you'll live," he said. The first stone flew through the air and struck his shoulder. The sound echoed across the plaza. The second hit his ribs. A third slammed into his back. The crowd watched in silence. Some were shocked, some were moved. Liara fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Each stone left a glowing mark on Ethan's skin, but he refused to fall. He stood tall, blood mixing with the dust, his eyes locked on Liara's. After what felt like hours, the high priest raised his hand again. The guard stopped. Ethan was barely standing, his body shaking, but he was alive. The old alien looked down at him with disbelief. "You still live?" he said. "No human should have survived the trial of stones." Ethan looked up, his voice weak but firm. "Maybe you don't know humans as well as you think," he whispered. A ripple of murmurs ran through the crowd. Some aliens looked at him with awe, others with fear. Voran turned to the council. "By law," he said slowly, "the one who takes another's punishment and survives becomes their bonded protector." Liara gasped. She looked at Ethan, her savior, her heart full of confusion and gratitude. The crowd began to chant softly. First a few, then hundreds. The human lives. The human lives. Ethan fell to his knees, the world spinning. Liara ran to him. Catching him before he hit the ground, she held his head in her arms, whispering, "Why did you do this?" Ethan smiled weakly. Because no one else would. Above them, the twin suns shone brighter, marking the beginning of something that would change two worlds forever. The world around Ethan was fading into light and shadow. He felt the hot wind of Arcan Prime brush against his torn skin. The stones still glowed faintly on the ground, each one carrying the memory of pain. The crowd had fallen into complete silence. No one dared to speak. Liara knelt beside him, her trembling hands hovering above his wounds. The glowing cuffs had burned deep marks into his wrists. His body shook with every breath, but his eyes were still open, still alive. The guards approached carefully, unsure whether to treat him as a hero or a fool. High Priest Varan stood above them, his staff gleaming with golden light. "Take him to the chambers of healing," he commanded. "He has earned the right to live." Liara's heart raced. She followed as the guards lifted Ethan's body and carried him through the long marble halls. The aliens around them watched in silence. Some bowed their heads with respect, others whispered curses. They laid Ethan on a floating bed made of crystal light. Ancient machines hummed softly as energy flowed through his wounds. The blue light danced across his skin, closing deep cuts but leaving silver scars behind. For 3 days and 3 nights, Ethan did not wake. Liara stayed beside him the whole time. She brought water, cleaned the wounds, and whispered words in her alien tongue. She did not understand why this human had chosen to suffer for her. On the morning of the 4th day, Ethan opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was her face, tired, pale but filled with warmth. "You stayed," he whispered, his voice barely a breath. Liara nodded. "You should not have done it," she said softly. "You almost died for nothing." Ethan tried to sit up but groaned in pain. "It wasn't for nothing," he said. "If I didn't do it, they would have killed you." Liara looked away. "You don't understand our world. Human, you have broken our law and now you have become part of it." Before he could ask what she meant, the door opened with a heavy sound. 2 tall alien guards entered, followed by High Priest Varan. His expression was unreadable. He raised his staff and spoke, his voice echoing through the chamber. "By the ancient code of Arcan, the one who survives another's punishment is forever bound to the one he saved. The protector owns the bond and the saved one owes life and loyalty." Ethan frowned. "Not understanding, what are you saying?" Liara's voice trembled as she spoke. "He means, I belong to you now." The words hit Ethan harder than the stones ever could. "No," he said quickly, "that's not what I wanted. I didn't do it for this." Varan smiled slightly. "It is not what you want, human. It is the law, and the law cannot be broken." He turned and left, leaving the 2 of them in heavy silence. Ethan looked at Liara, who kept her head bowed. "I don't own anyone," he said quietly. "I just wanted you to live." Liara lifted her eyes, her voice barely a whisper. "In our world, saving someone's life means taking their fate into your hands. My honor now belongs to you, Ethan Cross." Ethan didn't know what to say. He felt a strange mix of guilt and awe. He had only tried to do the right thing, but now, that act had changed both their destinies. Outside the healing chamber, the city was restless. Rumors spread through the streets. The human who survived the stones had become a symbol. Some saw him as a savior, others as a curse. Meanwhile, Liara guided Ethan through the temple's halls, showing him how her people lived. The alien architecture was beautiful and cold at the same time, full of light and strange runes that told stories of ancient wars. Everywhere they went, people stared. Some bowed to Liara out of respect, others turned away in anger. At night, Ethan sat by the window looking at the twin moons that glowed over the alien sea. "Your world is so beautiful," he said quietly. "But your laws are cruel." Liara sat beside him, her eyes reflecting the moons. "Our laws were made to protect order," she said. "But sometimes order forgets compassion." For a long moment, they said nothing. The silence between them was heavy but peaceful. Suddenly, the door burst open. Saris, Liara's older sister, entered the room. Her eyes burned with anger. "Liara, what have you done?" she shouted. "You've brought shame to our family. You've bonded with an alien." Ethan stood slowly, his body still weak. "I didn't choose this bond," he said calmly. "But I will not let her face your anger." Saris glared at him, but there was also confusion in her eyes. She had heard the stories. She knew this human had survived what no alien ever could. After a tense silence, she turned to her sister and whispered, "You have no idea what danger this brings. The council will not let this bond stand." Then she left. The sound of her footsteps fading down the long hall. Ethan looked at Liara. What did she mean? Liara sighed. "It means they will come for you soon, Ethan. They fear what you represent." Ethan leaned back, his jaw tight. "Then let them come," he said, his voice steady. "I didn't survive their stones just to bow to their fear." Liara looked at him, her heart beating fast. For the first time she saw not a human, but something more. A spirit unbroken, a force that her people could neither control nor understand. As the alien night deepened, the two sat in silence, unaware that their bond had already begun to change the Empire forever. The first rays of dawn spread across the alien city of Arkan Prime, bathing the white towers in soft golden light. Ethan woke to the distant sound of the ocean wind moving through crystal spires. His body still ached from the trial of stones, every scar burning like a silent memory. Liara entered quietly, carrying a bowl of glowing blue fruit. She placed it near him and said softly, "You should eat. Human food is not allowed here. This will help your strength." Ethan sat up slowly, his movements stiff. "You don't have to serve me," he said. "I told you. I didn't do this for ownership." Liara looked down, her voice low. "It doesn't matter what you want. Ethan, the law says I belong to you now. My life is bound to yours until death or release," he sighed. "I don't understand your laws. I don't want anyone to belong to me." Before Liara could answer, the door opened with a hiss. Saris entered again, her armor shining like silver glass. "The council has summoned you, human," she said sharply. "They want to see what kind of creature survives our stones." Ethan nodded, though his strength was not yet full. Liara moved to help him walk, but he refused gently. "I'll stand on my own," he said. As they stepped out of the healing chamber, the halls buzzed with whispers. Every alien they passed stopped and stared. Some bowed their heads, others muttered words of anger. "Look, the human who defied the law," one said. "He lives when no one should," another whispered. They reached the grand chamber of the High Council. The massive doors opened slowly, revealing 12 alien elders sitting in a circle. Above them, a shimmering orb floated, recording everything. High Priest Voran rose, his staff glowing faintly. "Human Ethan Cross," he began, "you have broken our sacred customs, yet you have survived what none before you could. This creates a dilemma. You are both an intruder and a symbol." Ethan met his gaze. "I didn't mean to challenge your world. I just couldn't watch an innocent die." Voran's eyes narrowed. "Your courage is not in question, but your existence now threatens our order. The bond between you and Liara is ancient, unbreakable, and dangerous." Liara stepped forward before Ethan could speak. "Please, my lord, he did not wish for this bond. He saved me out of kindness," the council members murmured among themselves. One of them, an older alien woman with bright emerald eyes, spoke. "Perhaps this is a sign. The old ways have ruled for too long. Maybe compassion is not weakness." Her words made the others uneasy. Some agreed, others shook their heads. The high priest struck his staff against the floor. "Enough," he thundered. "The law stands, the bond is valid, and cannot be undone." He turned to Ethan. "From this day forward, she is under your protection. You are her master, and she your servant. Break this law, and both shall die." Ethan clenched his fists, but said nothing. Liara looked at him with quiet fear. When they left the chamber, Saris followed silently behind. Once outside, she spoke in a low voice. "You've made enemies today, human. Some on the council believe you are a threat. They will not rest until you are gone." Ethan turned to her. "Then they'll have to try harder," he said, his tone calm but strong. Later, as they walked through the lower city, Liara showed Ethan the markets and streets of her world. The air shimmered with lights, and creatures of strange beauty moved gracefully through the crowds. Children pointed at him, whispering, "That's the human who took the stones." For a brief moment, Ethan felt a strange connection to this world, so different yet so alive. As the evening came, they sat near the river that flowed with liquid light. Liara broke the silence. "When I was a child, I dreamed of seeing other worlds, but our people never leave Arkan Prime. We are bound by the council's will." Ethan watched the glowing water. "On my world, people fight for freedom every day. Maybe one day your people will too." Liara smiled sadly. "Freedom has a price, and most are afraid to pay it." He looked at her, his voice gentle. "You already did." She met his eyes, her heart beating faster. For the first time, she saw not a stranger, but someone who truly understood her. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the riverbank. 3 armored aliens appeared from behind the pillars, their eyes glowing red. "By order of the council, the human must be taken," one hissed, raising his weapon. Ethan pushed Liara behind him, his body tense. I don't think so, he said quietly. The guards lunged forward. Ethan moved fast despite his injuries, grabbing one by the arm and throwing him into the river. The second fired a beam of light that scorched the ground beside him. Ethan ducked and tackled him, smashing the weapon away. Liara picked up a fallen staff and struck the third soldier across the chest, surprising even herself. The alien fell back. Stunned, breathing hard, Ethan looked around. They'll send more, he said. We need to get out of here. Liara nodded, fear in her eyes. But where can we go? The whole city is under the council's control. Ethan glanced at the twin moons above. Then we find somewhere they can't reach, he said. We're not running away, Liara. We're finding the truth. As they disappeared into the glowing streets, a new sense of purpose burned in his chest. He didn't just want to survive anymore. He wanted to understand why this bond existed, and what secret the council was hiding behind them. The city hummed with tension. The legend of the human who defied alien law had only just begun. The night on Arkan Prime was alive with glowing lights that floated above the streets like drifting spirits. The air was cool, filled with the soft hum of distant machines. Ethan and Liara moved through narrow alleys, keeping to the shadows. The sound of patrol drones echoed above, searching for them. Ethan's body still hurt from the fight, but his mind was sharper than ever. He knew they couldn't go back. The council wanted him silenced, and now Liara was in danger too. She walked close beside him, her green skin glowing faintly under the blue lights. Her eyes were full of worry. They won't stop, she whispered. Once the council declares someone an enemy, they will hunt until the end. Ethan looked at her, his voice steady. Then we don't give them the chance. We find out why they fear us so much. They entered an old part of the city where the towers were cracked and overgrown with glowing vines. The air smelled of rain and dust. Liara led him into a hidden chamber beneath a broken archway. Inside, the walls were covered with strange runes that pulsed with faint light. This place is forbidden, she said quietly. Only the priests used to come here long ago. They said it was where the first bonds were created. Ethan studied the carvings. The symbols showed humans and aliens standing side by side, not as enemies but as equals. You mean this has happened before, he said. Touching one of the runes, Liara nodded. Long ago, before our empire became strict, humans and my kind lived together. The bond between them was not about control. It was about unity. Ethan frowned. Then why did it change? Liara looked down. Because unity gave birth to fear. The old rulers saw that the bond made both races stronger. They erased the truth. They made it law that such a bond was forbidden. Ethan felt a chill. So that's why the council hates me. Not because I broke their law, but because I reminded them of what they tried to hide. Liara nodded. You are living proof that the bond is not a curse, but a connection. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. The air seemed to pulse around them. Ethan looked at her and said softly, You don't belong in their cage, Liara. You deserve to choose your own fate. Her eyes met his, glowing brighter in the dark. And you, Ethan Cross, you don't belong to their laws. You belong to your heart. A soft hum filled the air as the ancient runes began to glow brighter. A circle of light surrounded them. Liara gasped. The bond, she whispered. It's reacting. Ethan felt warmth spread through his chest. Not pain, but something powerful and alive. The marks on his wrists began to shimmer with the same light as the walls. The chamber responded to their presence. Suddenly, a deep voice echoed through the space, not spoken, but felt within their minds. The old bond has awakened. The heart of unity lives again. Liara stepped back, her eyes wide with shock. Did you hear that? Ethan nodded. Yeah, and I don't think it was just the wind. Before they could speak again, heavy footsteps echoed from the entrance. Saris appeared, her armor damaged, her expression torn between fear and relief. You're alive, she said sharply. Do you realize what you've done? You've activated something the council buried centuries ago. Ethan stepped forward. You knew about this? Saris hesitated. I heard stories as a child about the first humans who came here. The council said they were destroyers, but maybe that was a lie. Liara looked at her sister. They lied to keep power. They feared what we could become if we stood together. Before Saris could answer, the walls began to shake. The runes flickered wildly. A holographic image appeared in the air. An ancient alien figure. Robed in silver, the figure spoke in a calm, echoing voice. If you are seeing this, the old bond has returned. It means the two worlds are ready once again, but beware. For those who rule in fear will seek to destroy what you are. The image faded, leaving silence behind. Saris looked at them, her voice trembling. You must leave the city. They will destroy this place and anyone inside once they realize what you found. Ethan nodded. Then come with us, she hesitated. Then finally said, if I stay, I die. If I leave, I become a traitor, but maybe it's time someone did. The three of them ran through the underground tunnels as explosions echoed in the distance. The council's guards were already closing in. The tunnels led to an opening on the edge of the cliffs, where the twin moons shone bright over the endless ocean. Ethan turned back, watching the city lights flicker below. They'll come after us, he said. They won't stop. Liara placed her hand on his arm. Then we won't stop either, she said, her voice calm and strong. We'll find the truth. We'll show them what the bond truly means. Ethan looked at her, then at Saris. 3 against an empire, he said with a faint smile. I've seen worse odds. The night wind blew through their hair, carrying the sound of distant sirens. But in that moment, none of them felt fear, only purpose. Somewhere deep within the ancient ruins, the runes of the old bond glowed once more, whispering of change. And so began the journey of the human who defied alien law, and the 2 sisters who chose to follow him into the unknown. The wind howled over the cliffs as dawn broke on the horizon, painting the ocean in silver and gold. Ethan stood at the edge, staring at the endless sky. The twin suns were rising, and for the first time, he felt the full weight of what he had started. Liara and Saris stood behind him, their cloaks whipping in the wind. They had left everything behind, their home, their names, and the safety of the empire. Ahead of them lay only danger, but also the chance for truth. We can't keep running forever, Ethan said quietly, his voice rough from exhaustion. If we want to end this, we need to show them the truth. Saris crossed her arms. You don't know what you're asking for. The council controls every broadcast, every record, even history itself. They've erased everything that doesn't fit their story. Ethan turned to her, his eyes sharp. Then we find what they couldn't erase. Liara looked at him, her voice soft but certain. There's an old archive beneath the desert of Nareth. It's where the Empire stores forbidden knowledge. No one goes there anymore. It's guarded by machines older than the city itself. Ethan nodded. Then that's where we go. Their journey through the wastelands began at dawn. The desert stretched endlessly under the burning light of the twin suns. Strange crystal plants shimmered like glass, and the air was filled with whispers of ancient energy. They moved carefully, avoiding patrols and drones at night. They made camp under the glowing moons. Ethan sat near the fire, his eyes distant. Liara watched him. Do you ever regret it? She asked softly. Taking my punishment, he looked up at her, the firelight reflecting in his eyes. No, he said. I regret not doing it sooner. Saris rolled her eyes slightly but smiled. Humans are strange. You risk your life for people you barely know. Ethan chuckled quietly. Maybe, but sometimes strangers become the reason you keep fighting. The sisters exchanged a glance, neither replying. The night passed quietly, filled with thoughts none of them could voice. By the next evening, they reached the entrance to the ancient archive. It was buried beneath a mountain of red stone, a massive gate covered with alien markings. The air hummed with old power. This is it, Liara said, tracing her fingers over the symbols. The library of the first ones. Ethan studied the gate. How do we open it? Saris pulled out a small device from her belt. Let me handle that, she said, pressing a few buttons. A flash of blue light scanned the door. Then the massive structure rumbled and slid open, revealing a dark corridor lined with glowing stones. They stepped inside cautiously. The walls were covered with carvings showing humans and aliens together, working side by side, building cities, sharing technology, and protecting each other. Ethan stopped. Staring at one of the murals, it showed a human standing beside an alien queen, both holding a glowing crystal heart between them. The words beneath read, Unity through bond. This changes everything, he said. Your people didn't rule over humans. They ruled with them. Liara's voice trembled. The council lied for generations. They said humans were the enemy who destroyed our peace. Saris clenched her fists. And they used that lie to control everyone. They reached the central chamber, where a giant crystal pulsed with faint light. Ethan stepped closer, touching its surface. The crystal responded instantly, projecting a holographic map of the galaxy, and with it, ancient records. A voice echoed through the chamber. the same voice they heard in the ruins. Calm and wise. If this message is heard, the bond of unity has been rediscovered. Long ago, fear divided our worlds and the truth was buried. But the bond will always find its way back, guided by sacrifice and heart. Liara covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. It's real, she whispered. The bond was never meant to enslave, it was meant to connect. Ethan turned to the sisters. Then we have proof. We can show this to everyone. Let them see what their leaders have hidden. Before anyone could respond, the ground shook violently. The crystal flickered. Warning symbols filled the walls. Saris shouted, "They found us! They must have tracked our energy signal." Ethan grabbed the data core from the base of the crystal. "We can't lose this. This is the truth the galaxy needs." Explosions rocked the tunnels as council soldiers poured in through the entrance. Laser beams cut through the dust and smoke. Ethan and the sisters ran through the corridors, dodging blasts, the air filled with the sounds of war. At the outer gate, Ethan turned, covering their escape. He fired back with a stolen alien weapon, his eyes burning with determination. "Go. I'll hold them off." Liara grabbed his arm, refusing to move. "No, not again. I won't leave you to suffer alone." Saris pulled them both toward the exit. "If we die here, the truth dies too," she said, her voice fierce. They burst out into the desert just as the archive collapsed behind them in a storm of dust and light. The data core glowed in Ethan's hands, the last record of the ancient truth. They stood on the sand, breathing hard. Watching the mountain crumble into the ground, Liara turned to him. "Now what?" Ethan looked toward the horizon, where the twin suns burned bright. "Now," he said slowly, "we show them the truth, and we start a revolution." The sisters looked at him, both afraid and inspired for the first time. Hope burned brighter than fear far behind them. The wind carried the faint echo of the crystal's voice, whispering once more. "The bond is not chains, it is strength." And under the twin suns of Ark and Prime, the seeds of rebellion began to grow, carried by the courage of one human and two alien sisters who chose to stand beside him. The desert winds carried the taste of smoke and dust as the sun sank behind the horizon. Ethan stood on a ridge overlooking the ruins of the archive, the data core clutched in his hand. It glowed faintly, pulsing like a living heart, reminding him of what they had found and what they had lost. Liara and Sarah stood beside him, their cloaks torn, their faces streaked with sand and determination. Behind them stretched the endless wasteland, but ahead, beyond the mountains, the shining towers of Ark and Prime waited, the heart of the Empire. "We can't just walk into the city," Sarah said, her voice steady but cautious. "They'll kill us before we even reach the gates." Ethan looked at her, his eyes full of fire. "Then we won't walk in. We'll make them come to us," Liara frowned. "What do you mean?" Ethan held up the glowing core. "We broadcast this to every screen, every communicator, every world connected to the Empire. The truth won't stay buried if everyone sees it." Saris hesitated. "You'll make yourself their biggest target." Ethan smiled faintly. "Then they'll finally have to listen." That night, under the twin moons, they built a signal array using broken parts from old machines they found in the ruins. Sparks flew as Ethan worked, his hands steady even as exhaustion pulled at his body. Liara helped him connect the wires while Saris kept watch. When it was ready, Ethan stood before the transmitter, the glowing data core in his hands. He looked at the sisters. "Once I do this, there's no turning back." Liara stepped closer, her eyes filled with courage. There never was. Ethan placed the core into the transmitter. The machine hummed to life, filling the night with a low vibration. A beam of blue light shot into the sky, spreading across the stars, carrying the message of the ancient bond to every corner of the Empire. Across cities, colonies, and distant worlds, holographic images appeared, showing humans and aliens once united, working together, protecting each other. The voice of the ancient guardian echoed through every home. "The bond is not slavery, it is unity together. Our worlds were whole, divided we fall." The effect was instant. People across the Empire stopped in shock. Priests dropped their staffs, soldiers lowered their weapons, and ordinary citizens began to whisper the same word again and again: truth. But inside the great council chamber of Ark and Prime, chaos erupted. The high priest Voran slammed his staff onto the floor. "Find them!" he roared. "Destroy that signal and bring me the human's head." Elite troops were dispatched, flying across the desert in sleek black crafts. Ethan, Liara, and Saris saw the ships approaching, the night sky burning with red lights. "They're coming," Saris said, drawing her weapon. Ethan nodded. "Then we stand our ground." The battle began under the light of the moons. The first wave of soldiers descended in clouds of dust, firing beams of energy that turned sand to glass. Ethan fired back with precision, using every bit of his training. The sisters moved beside him, Saris deflecting blasts with her shield, Liara using energy from the ground itself to create walls of glowing crystal. The desert became a storm of light and sound. The humans and aliens fought not as enemies, but as something greater, united by truth and survival. Ethan shouted over the chaos. "They're afraid of us, of what we stand for." Liara's eyes glowed bright as she focused her energy. "Then let them see why." She raised her hands, and the ground beneath the soldiers erupted in a wave of light, throwing them back. The air shimmered with power as the bond between her and Ethan pulsed stronger than ever. High above, one of the crafts fired a massive beam toward them. Ethan grabbed Liara and pulled her to the ground just as the blast hit. The explosion sent a shockwave through the desert. The transmitter shattering for a moment, everything went silent. Then the sound of the Empire's voice filled the air once more. The broadcast had spread beyond their control. It was too late to stop it, the truth was already out. The remaining soldiers hesitated, some lowering their weapons, confused by what they had heard. One of them dropped to his knees. "The bond was real," he murmured. "They lied to us." Sarah stepped forward, her voice strong. "Yes, they did. But now we can choose what to believe." The soldiers looked at each other, uncertain, torn between orders and truth. Then from the sky a massive ship appeared, the flagship of the High Priest himself. Varan's voice echoed through loudspeakers. "You think your truth will save you, human? You have only brought war." Ethan stepped forward, standing tall against the ship's shadow. "No, Varan," he said, his voice calm but fierce. "You brought war the day you turned truth into fear." Varan's ship fired again, but the beam split mid-air, deflected by the glowing barrier that formed between Ethan and Liara. The bond's energy pulsed brighter than ever, filling the night with blue light. The ship trembled, its power failing under the surge. The soldiers began to cheer. "The bond protects them!" Varan screamed in fury, his voice lost in the storm of light. The great ship cracked apart, vanishing into the night sky as the dust settled. Silence filled the desert once more. The Empire's army was scattered, and the first light of dawn touched the horizon. Ethan turned to Liara and Saris. "It's over," he said softly. Liara smiled through tears. "No, Ethan. It's just beginning." The bond between them glowed faintly. Calm now, alive but at peace for the first time, humans and aliens had fought side by side, and not for law, but for heart, and across the galaxy the word spread like wildfire. The human lived, the bond is real, the truth has returned. The first light of morning touched the sands of Arkan Prime, painting them in gold and white. The battle was over. The desert was silent except for the whispering wind that carried the smell of smoke and freedom. Ethan stood among the ruins of the battlefield, his armor scorched, his body tired. But his spirit unbroken. Liara and Saris stood beside him, their eyes reflecting the rising suns. The Empire's banners lay torn across the dunes. The soldiers who once followed orders now stood without them, uncertain but free. The sky above was calm. The massive ship of the High Priest, long gone, vanished into dust and memory. For the first time in generations, the Empire was without a master. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill his lungs. "It's over," he whispered, his voice carrying through the wind. Liara turned to him, her green skin glowing softly in the morning light. "No, Ethan," she said gently. "It's not over. It's only beginning." All across the world, the signal of truth still echoed. Every screen, every communicator, every city had seen the message of the bond. The people of Arkan Prime were waking from centuries of lies. Some wept, some knelt in silence. Others raised their hands toward the twin suns, whispering the same words again and again. "The bond is not chains, it is strength," in the capital. The remaining council members gathered, broken and fearful. The oldest among them spoke in a trembling voice. "We cannot rule through lies anymore. The people will never bow again." For the first time, the council dissolved itself. The cities began to change. The statues of the old rulers were torn down, replaced by new symbols, and 2 hands, one human and one alien. Joined together beneath the twin suns, Ethan watched from afar as the world slowly began to heal. He and the sisters stayed in the quiet valley near the ocean, where the sand met the glowing sea. The air was peaceful there, filled with the sound of waves and the calls of strange birds. Days passed, but peace did not feel like silence. It felt like breathing again after years of drowning. One evening, as the suns dipped low and the ocean shimmered like liquid fire, Liara sat beside Ethan on a smooth rock overlooking the water. "Do you ever think about your home?" she asked softly. Ethan smiled faintly. "Every day," he said, "but sometimes I wonder if home is just where you stop running." Liara looked at him, her eyes shining with quiet affection. "You could have left. You could have gone back to your people. Why did you stay?" He turned to her, his expression calm. "Because I found something here worth staying for." For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The light around them glowed warmer. The bond between them pulsed gently, no longer burning, just alive. Liara reached out and touched the scars on his wrists. "These marks," she whispered, "they once meant pain. Now they mean hope." Ethan nodded. "And they remind me that even in the darkest places, someone can still choose kindness." Behind them, Saris walked toward the edge of the shore, watching the horizon. Her voice carried softly over the waves. "The council is gone, but their followers still hide in the shadows. We'll need to build something new, something better." Ethan stood, looking out at the sea. "Then we'll build it together," he said. "Humans and aliens side by side. No masters, no slaves, only equals," Liara smiled. A world born from one act of courage. As night fell, the stars appeared one by one, bright and clear. Among them, a new light flickered. The restored satellite network of the Empire, now broadcasting not fear, but unity. Across the galaxy, voices began to speak. "The human who took her punishment has given us our freedom." Ethan and Liara stood hand in hand beneath the alien sky, the bond between them glowing softly like a heartbeat of the world. Saris turned toward them, a small smile breaking through her usual sternness. "They'll tell stories about you, you know," she said. "The human who faced our stones and turned law into love." Ethan laughed quietly. "Let them tell it, but make sure they remember her too," he said, nodding toward Liara. "She's the one who taught me what courage really means." Liara's eyes filled with warmth. "And you taught me what it means to be free." The three of them stood together as the wind rose again, carrying the scent of the sea and the whisper of a new age. Far above, the twin suns touched the horizon, merging into one bright light before disappearing beyond the sea. And in that golden glow, a new dawn was born. A dawn where no one bowed to fear, where truth and heart ruled over law, and where a single act of sacrifice had rewritten the destiny of two worlds. The legend of Ethan Cross, the human who took her punishment and changed an empire, would echo for generations, reminding all that true strength is not in power or rule, but in compassion. And as the stars shone brighter over Arkan Prime, Ethan turned to Liara and whispered with a smile, "We made it." Liara looked at him, her voice soft as starlight. "No, Ethan," she said. "We began it." The waves crashed softly against the shore, and the world exhaled in peace, as the bond of heart and honor lit the path to a future no law could ever break.